All right, well, how about just a little round of applause for the YMCA? Beautiful facility. Years ago, I'm on my tour of being sad that I'm senior in high school now and trying to get through that, walk around this aimlessly sad throughout town every day. But years ago, he came to summer camp here, and he, 17 years old, over the last 17 years, I've seen him be pretty filthy. He's never been dirtier than playing here at the YMCA, so, but I do miss those times. I know what happens here all the time for kids all across this community, so I'm very grateful to the YMCA, the board, the administration here, the administration system-wide going through this community, so very grateful, and I'm obviously very thankful that you allowed us in here today. We are here, as you all know, to talk about an issue that is impacting all aspects of life in our community. It's one that, if we think about all the reasons why folks might find themselves homeless, if we think about all the challenges we have around affordable housing, they're pretty broad. And so today, we wanted to really zoom in on like an aspect of that challenge. How do we actually, in an outcomes committed way, get folks off the streets into housing, support them through that housing, get them on to a better life, and do it in a way that makes sense for us as taxpayers and the community. So I'm very excited about this conversation. We have a great group of people who are here as we dig into it. I am a little nervous because there's a number of elected officials in the room, and I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm going off what I see. So I'm going to apologize in advance if I miss you. I do want to start with someone who is a great partner at City Hall. That's our Deputy Mayor, Crystal Reyes. Crystal, thank you for being here. I saw two of our city councilors. I see Councilor Anthony Archie. Thank you for allowing us on the west side. I've asked for permission to bring them to Anthony's side. I also see Councilor Jackie Dudman. There's Councilor Jackie Dudman. What's that?
East side.
Oh, okay. Well, this is not a public safety room. This is just a no kidding. Also have our city auditor, Nathan Picard. Thank you for being here. And we have State Representative Amanda Clinton, which is right in front of me. Here she is. Thank you for being here. If we can, just our team we're going to talk about a lot of things tonight, and if there's some questions you might have about things as we roll out of here, if just our team of city employees would just stand up and wave your hands so everybody kind of see who you are, just go for it. Nobody said that. Oh, there you are. Thank you for standing. Michelle didn't stand.
No.
Michelle didn't stand. But we have a group of panelists. We have 3 panelists tonight, and I will say there's a lot of experts that are spread across this room, so this should be a great conversation with us this evening. On the stage, or not stage, in front of the room right now, is someone who has been pivotal in our work at City Hall as we really thought about the pathway forward on the issue of homelessness, and that is the Senior Advisor for Homelessness, Emily Hall. Emily, thank you for being here. Next to Emily is someone who I very much feel is a part of our family at the city, someone who's been a tireless advocate not only for homeless population, but also someone who's been deep in the work here in Tulsa and other places, the CEO of Housing Solutions, Mark Smith. And we'll get to that in a second. And then on the far end is the Senior Advisor for Housing, the greatest Gene I've ever met, Gene Bullnash. Thank you, Gene. So real quick, I'm going to have maybe just a couple more remarks. We're going to hop into the conversation a little quicker than the 45-minute mark. And we're going to start, as we do with all that we do, is reflect reflecting on the 6 priorities that we have coming out of our mayor and council retreat. You see number 1 is ending homelessness by 2030. When we talk about ending homelessness, we're talking about reaching that functional zero mark. That means that, doesn't mean that you won't see anybody on the street ever, but it means we built a system here that does very specific things, that can deliver on very specific things. 1, taking our wait time for housing from what is 200 and how many days, Mark? 220 days down to 45 days, which is making it rare, which means that our inflow, that I'm sure Mark will talk about in a little bit, is less than our ability to house folks, so we have available stock that outpaces the number of folks who are falling into homelessness every year. And then we make it non-recurring, meaning less than 5% of the folks who we serve end up being homelessness over a 2-year period. That is the mark of success in this particular area. Second is increasing housing stock. Gene is here. We have a goal of 6,000 affordable units in 4 years. You can go online right now and say housing tracker, so you can see how close we're getting to it. We have a long way to go, but our administration, our team at the city, and I mean our whole team at the city, even though we know it's tough, it doesn't mean you don't measure those things. It doesn't mean you're not transparent about those things. And so we're working toward that. 3 is around improving student outcomes. We had a community conversation about that this last week. Making Tulsa the safest big city in the country, ensuring equality of economic opportunity in this community, and then co-governing with our tribal nations as we work to repair those relationships and build a brighter future together. So just really quick, I know they're going to talk about this, but again, just quick grounding data. I'm going to use round numbers. They're going to give you specific numbers, I would imagine, in just a second. Right now, we're in an environment where we have about 1,500 people who are homeless. 500 of those sleep on the streets every single day. And I mention that because I want to make it really clear. Some folks say that achieving functional zero homelessness is not possible. If you just think about this like a math problem, it is very possible. It does require investment, but it is possible. I will also say, it's a grounding exercise just a little bit. I just spent about a week with mayors from all around the world, 47 mayors from 17 different countries, the majority of them mayors in the United States, as part of a cohort of mayors from the Bloomberg Initiative. And every single one of the mayors that was from a U.S. city, their number 1 issue was homelessness. It's a national issue, and the cities that get serious about it will be the cities that are going to be able to do the things around building an economy, making sure that you're creating a better pathway for kids, creating that economic equality that we talked about. I wish that this wasn't an issue that impacted our community like it does, but it just does impact our community. So we have to make a decision to sit around and watch it and hope that things get better, or we have to invest ourselves in making sure that they get better, and that's what tonight's conversation is all about. So with that, I kind of ran through the goals. I think, Emily, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor.
I was going to sing a song if you didn't get more. Real quick before you go in, just walked in, Councilor Lori Decker Wright. Thank you, Councilor.
As the Mayor stated, our goal is to achieve functional zero homelessness by 2030, making this rare, brief, and non-recurring. This is just, in order to do this, in March, the Mayor set forth an executive order identifying 4 key priorities. 1 being winter shelter, 1 being expanding low barrier shelter capacity, 1 being decommissioning street homelessness and ending street sleeping, and 1, the eviction mitigation coalition.
So I can talk a little bit about homelessness today. So Emily and I are going to ping pong a little bit here. Or you were done yet?
It's okay.
I can wait.
Go for it.
It's their first time doing it again, everybody.
We're not used to having to share a microphone, so this is a little different for both of us. So I can talk a little bit about some of the data that we know. So Housing Solutions is the lead agency for Way Home for Tulsa. It's more than 60 different local organizations that are providing services to individuals who are experiencing homelessness or at high risk or housing unstable. That can be shelter, that can be street outreach, that can be case management, that can be eviction prevention. There's a wide array of legal assistance, and I see quite a few of the folks who've been doing that work for years. So we have a wide array of service providers, but we do have a challenge that homelessness continues to rise in Tulsa and has for several years. And so what's the root of that? There's a couple different ways that we can think about homelessness. We can think about the individual that may pop into our mind when we say homelessness. Maybe the individual is on shelter, who's unkempt, who's in a public space, and that's maybe the image that pops into our mind. What we don't realize is that 3,100 adults, not including children, but 3,100 adults fall into homelessness in a given year in Tulsa. And many of us don't see those people at any point. These are people who have fallen on hard times, they've had a crisis, they're fleeing violence in their home, they've lost a job, or they've had a medical emergency. And many of these people are able to get out of homelessness on their own. Many of these folks stay in shelter, which is a safe place to stay. We have some great shelter providers here in our room. But they spend on average about 64 days, and then they exit that shelter without any assistance. And this is where we have a high number of people in our shelters who are currently employed or working or have income. So there's something wrong there, that while shelters are providing a good services and giving people a safe place to sleep, many people would prefer to have their own bed. And so what is that delay? It's that 74% of people are first-time homeless and really could be back on their feet on their own very quickly with a little bit more support. Just a safe place to sleep and food and a shower, unfortunately, is just not quite enough for many people, especially when it comes to getting back into a housing market that has just gotten more expensive in Tulsa in the last couple of years. So we're oftentimes talking about having enough cash on hand to pay first month's rent, security deposit. Maybe if you were evicted, you have a past due bill that you have to have resolved. And so that can sometimes be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And so many people are saving money until they can get back on their feet. Or that creates a challenge for the 500 individuals who are sleeping on the streets every night, is that we don't have bed availability. Because people who are experiencing more recent crisis are using shelter beds, the individuals who have been homeless for a longer period of time and have higher needs, there's less of room available. And so that creates a consistent challenge of growing encampments, people sleeping outdoors, because we have a lack of capacity to serve everyone, but we also have a lack of ability to help people exit homelessness as quickly as possible, which is in the best interest of everyone. What we find when looking at some of our data, and we've been collecting this for years now, so any outreach provider, any shelter provider, any housing provider, we all use the same system, so we can have this type of insight into the situation, is that 80% of the people who fall into homelessness in a given year could exit homelessness really quickly if we were just able to give them a level of assistance that's beyond what we can currently do. And a big driving factor of that is that our community is dependent on federal funding, which comes with a lot of red tape and a lot of restrictions, and is just not sufficient to meet the need that we have currently. And then we have individuals, very generous people who are supporting our existing operations, but we lack the resources that are dedicated in a way to help some of these newly homeless. And then also, we have a population that has really, really high needs, that also needs some focused, dedicated resources to help those people get off the street. And so we're just not quite meeting the need of either population at the level that really anyone would like to.
So we have to look at the way our homeless shelters are operating and what interventions can be put in place. Our current operations, our shelters are still operating as they have been for many, many years. And the demand continues to grow. Right now, our shelters are operating at 100% in over capacity. It's creating a bottleneck. People have, on average, 64 nights in a shelter before they are moving on a pathway to housing. And that overall pathway is taking 200 to 220 days. Because that's a bottleneck, people falling into homelessness have no place to go but onto the street, creating a bottleneck on our streets. So in order to look at how to begin to get to functional zero, begin to make movement in our shelters, we must look at interventions. And this includes early interventions. This is offering those who first fall into homelessness rapid resolution. This is offering then more long-term support and deeper interventions for our more or chronic long-term stay individuals. Those are the folks who are increasingly sleeping outside. We are doing this through Safe Move Tulsa and through the partnership of the City Council, through the partnership of our service providers. We've already begun the work to focus on 300 individuals to move them out of shelter and off of the street through rapid resolution. Safe Move Tulsa, to do at scale, means to rethink how we're focusing and identifying those that are new to homelessness, must focus on immediate interventions, meaning that we catch people immediately as they fall into homelessness and quickly get them back out. Roughly 500 individuals on any given night in Tulsa just need a little bit of support to get them back on a pathway to success. It means focusing on long-term homelessness. This is urgent, deeper interventions. If we can get folks back out of homelessness quickly, then our service providers can spend more time with deeper interventions. This means focusing and developing high-needs, complex case teams who are focused on mental health support, enforcement, and hospital partnership, so that as people need treatment, as they are discharged from treatment, they are actually on a pathway to success. Focusing on those intentional environments, the teams that get people out of the position that they are in, individualized supports, and on a pathway to stability.
So, what are the bases of Safe Move Tulsa? I think this has been talked about in the media a lot, but really, what are we trying to accomplish? So we should really be focused here at Safe Move Tulsa, really focused on addressing, I think, an issue that many people in the room is unsheltered homelessness. People who are sleeping on our streets and don't have a safe place to go in encampments. We know that that is a significant challenge both for the public and the community, from a public health, public safety aspect, but it's also an unsafe and unhealthy environment for the people who are in these conditions and are struggling to get out of it on their own. So regardless of what you think the source of the problem, I think we can all acknowledge it's a very significant problem that affects everyone. So the first step is to eliminate and prevent street sleeping. Street sleeping is just not healthy for anyone in our community, and it's something that takes a really intentional focus to be able to address it. So rehousing and supporting 300 individuals for stability and to recover in the first 9 months of the program. So we don't want to just help people exit homelessness, we want to build recovery and stability so that people don't fall back in. We are trying to disrupt this cycle of people constantly falling in and out of homelessness. We want long-term stability as well. Support up to 1,000 individuals experiencing first-time homelessness to quickly return to home housing. So we talked about...
Ask any questions?
We'll have time for that.
We'll have questions, yes, we'll absolutely have some time for questions.
So just quick, hold on, wait a second. If you have note cards in your hand, if you have questions right now, just go ahead and write them on there so you don't forget them. We'll have questions after they get done, perhaps we missed that earlier.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought it was question time.
That's fine. So the second aspect is to support 1,000 individuals experiencing first-time homelessness. As we mentioned, in a given year, 3,100 people experience homelessness for the first time. So we're helping a third of those folks, which is significant. Think about having those beds freed up and those people back into a safe, stable place to live. And meeting some of the need, but still having significantly more to do there. The budget is $10 million, with city committing $6 million from opioid and ARPA funds, and then a $4 million fundraising goal from private grants, so that we can meet this $10 million need to achieve that goal, rehousing 300 individuals, and then helping 1,000 individuals who are newly homeless quickly exit homelessness. So some of this is also helping to scale effective shelter support. So we talked about people who are experiencing first-time homelessness will stay in our shelters for 64 days. Those people are exiting homelessness without assistance other than the housing and the shelter and the services. They're not receiving formal financial or housing assistance. So how can we scale so that time is short? So we can have a faster experience and then increase more beds for the people who need them next. How can we activate shelters to quickly return individuals to that stable shelter housing, like I just mentioned, and how can we commit our service providers to offer immediate interventions for people with long histories of housing. So when we say 220 days for people who have longer experiences of homelessness, and that they're going to need some more formalized support, on average, somebody waits 220 days before a slot opens with case management, recovery, housing, support that is shown through evidence and data that's been collected for years is effective in helping people exit homelessness and stay out of homelessness. Our community as a whole has a 93% success rate. And when someone needs those structured supports, 93% of the time it's successful. But we're not doing it at scale. It's a very, very long way.
Just add one thing, before you go. Safe.
Go ahead.
One more.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, just one more thing. Safe Move Tulsa, I think the really unique piece about this initiative is that this is a true public-private partnership. We know that homelessness is a community issue. It will take all of us to hit functional zero homelessness, and Safe Move Tulsa is the launch of a public-private partnership.
So the last part here is just what are we trying to achieve? So if you look at this chart, you see that early interventions. So the dark blue is where we don't have any resources currently to help people. And that's what we need, and we need to sustain. Because unfortunately, just people experience crisis. Like I said, this happens in community. People make mistakes. A bad thing happens. We have an emergency. The place where we may be living is unsafe. And we haven't totally disrupted that in our community. So we know people are going to experience crisis and fall into homelessness. Our goal is to help people exit and exit safely and just sustainably as fast as possible. So you see here that we need about up to 2,400 or about 2,500 slots of assistance for everyone. And then what we predict, looking forward, based on what we've seen, looking at the last 3 years of data for our community, is that 2,100 people annually will likely need assistance. In addition to that, so if you look at the deeper interventions, the gray area at the bottom, that's where we have existing resources for people who are experiencing long-term homelessness. Many of these folks are struggling with disabilities, and so are going to need a deeper level of support. You can see that we're just woefully inadequate in terms of the amount of resources to meet the scale of the problem. And so this really gets to the point of, I have these experiences every day, where you are out for a walk, or you interact with somebody that you know is in crisis and know is struggling. And we have that frustrating point of like, how can I help? I know I can't do everything to help. But like, dang it, why is this allowed to exist? Why are we doing that? Why is this in our community, which is a fantastic community? Do we have so many people who are really struggling that we know we should help them, but we're just not quite doing it? And unfortunately, some of it is resources. Like, there are people in our community who have very high needs and they're going to need help. Doesn't mean they can't be successful, but it is a matter of resources. We're doing it for several hundred people currently, but we're talking about it scaling up to be the totality of the need. When we look at this across a 5-year projection, looking at the cost of what it means to provide rental assistance, treatment, case management, help people with employment, helping people access benefits. The first year is that $10 million goal. The second year would be $21 million. And then annually, for years 3, 4, and 5, is at $30 million. And that is achieving that true end to functional, unsheltered homelessness. So that means that no individual is left sleeping on our streets because we don't have a resolution. So that allows us to do the work, like we said, of closing encampments, ending street sleeping, because every person has a pathway to get out of that situation with like the support that they need, whether that's employment, education, long-term affordable housing, treatment. We have that properly resourced. I know that sounds like a lot of funding, and I know that it sounds like, come on, can you do it? What I'd like to point out is just a few years ago in Tulsa, homelessness was decreasing. So when the COVID-19 pandemic happened, there was a lot of challenges with that, but there was a huge inflow of federal funding that came into our community. And so our community was rehousing about 300 more people a year, 300 to 400 more people a year than we were before. We also had an eviction moratorium, and we had emergency rental assistance. So less people were falling into homelessness, and we had about 400 less people on a given day that were experiencing homelessness in our community. So we've done this before. Just 3 or 4 years ago, we were helping hundreds more people get out of homelessness, and we had hundreds more who were not experiencing long-term homelessness because we were acting in crowd. What happened is the federal government, as they're prone to do, cut resources, and the problem has continued to grow since then. So if we're going to solve this problem, we know it does take some sustainable resources to do so, and a very targeted intervention. But we can and have done this just in the recent past. But if we want to get to true function, no person in our community has no other option but to sleep outside, then it is going to take a level of investment that just hasn't been made previously.
I'd rather not have a microphone, but I will take one just to follow the course. Tough group to follow. I'm going to transition a little bit to something that's a lot less kind of pressing, but in order to solve homelessness, the biggest reason for people becoming homeless is lack of housing that's affordable. So my role as a senior advisor on housing is to try to help build the housing that's affordable so people can complete that process. So I'm going to go through 3 goals and address each goal and kind of some challenges and some updates on how we're doing. So the first goal is creating 13,000 housing units over 10 years. A housing study was done in 2023 that identified the need for approximately 13,000 units over 10 years. And that's at all affordability levels and all types of housing in all parts of the city. After that, the mayor came in and set a goal of 6,000 units that are affordable at 2028. That's a subset of the 13. So we are exploring lots of options on how to make that happen. Some of those are listed here. We're looking at how to improve our permitting process. We're looking at working with new partners. We're looking to be transparent and accountable, as the mayor said. So we have a housing tracker that's online right now. You can scan that QR code. There are also some copies printed out at the table in the back corner over there. And as of today, we have about 1,978 units that have been completed or permitted, so under construction, since the mayor took office on December 2nd. Of those, about 653 are what we're considering affordable, so 10% toward our goal of 6,000. Obviously, we have a long way to go, but we're going to continue to provide that accountability and transparency. So towards that goal, obviously, we have some challenges. This slide has some statistics. I don't have them in my head, so I'm not going to repeat them. I don't need to read them off the screen. You all can do that. But they can essentially be summarized as follows. The costs have been increasing faster than income for many people in our community, which is contributing to the affordable housing crisis. And as Mark indicated, the crisis is not unique to Tulsa. It's a nationwide crisis. But I think Tulsa is unique that if, in my opinion, if homelessness and affordable housing can be solved anywhere, it's going to be solved right here in Tulsa, because we have the perfect combination of political will with the mayor and city council. We have a community who is passionate and engaged, and we have amazing philanthropic partners. So second goal, in addition to creating new housing that's affordable, the mayor set a goal of reducing problematic, unsafe, and unsanitary properties by 60%, also by 2028. Again, this slide shows some of the ways that we're working towards that goal, ideally by cooperating with people who are already doing some of the work, current property owners, developers, and others, and seeing if we can convert some of these properties that are dilapidated, unsafe, or unsanitary back to productive use, safe, affordable, quality housing. And if we take some of those properties that are dilapidated, turn them into quality housing that's affordable, that's taking one property and helping us towards 2 goals at the same time. So that would be ideal. And then, again, some challenges. This slide shows the statistics again, related to the age of properties and the increase in cost. Medical are nationwide. Again, Tulsa is not unique. Over the years, many people have not been able to maintain their properties the way they would like to because of the lack of resources. And if we can find ways to subsidize that or assist with that, help people stay in their home, obviously. If somebody can stay in their home, they're not going to become homeless. And if avoiding somebody becoming homeless is the easiest and most effective and least traumatic way to keep them out. For the third goal, this is my last one, so don't worry. The goal is to implement or spend the IoT through our Tulsa $3. As you all know, for the third time recently, residents voted on how to allocate additional sales tax revenue, and for the first time allocated $75 million towards housing. So we are trying to follow best practices on how to use that money to incentivize construction and preservation of quality housing that's affordable. So we've identified Housing Partnership Network as an experienced third-party partner to help us leverage those funds, because we know that $75 billion is not enough, and also to help administer loans, investments, and grants to developers who are already building housing, and we can subsidize the cost. They can make more of that housing affordable to more people. And as I said, some challenges following the pattern. $75 million is great, but it's not enough. The housing study that I referred to initially, that was done in 2023, identified approximately $250 million as an annual investment in order to meet the growing needs of the city. So again, hopefully Housing Partnership Network will be able to leverage the $75 million that has been allocated already to reach that goal by gathering private donations or loans in addition to the city fund.
Great. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to transfer, get your questions ready, and I want to just, real quick, on the question. 2 questions. Maybe not statements, questions. But we'll have those in a second. I'm going to get this kicked off really quick. And I'm going to get to as many as I can in the time that we have. But just know a couple things. Our team is here after this event. Anytime you have questions about strategy, if you have ideas, we also have a number of folks within the community serving both on the homeless side and the housing side. So just, if I can, just really quickly, so everybody can get a feel for who you are out there, in case you have additional questions about things. If you are currently in the field, a practitioner in the field around homelessness or housing, can you just please just kind of just pop up just really quick so people can see who you are? So just as we're going through all this, I wanted to make sure you had some awareness about who's who in the room as we get rolling through a number of questions. I'm going to actually start, and I'm going to pose this to both. I'm going to pose this to both Emily and Mark. Homelessness is a dynamic issue, and there's a lot of opinions about why people are homeless, what to do about it. Can you kind of just give us a little bit foundationally on how we have established the practice that we're using and the confidence, and as to why we have confidence that we can hit that functional zero mark by 2030?
Well, it's really important that we are making,
Only the next one.
well, it's really important that we are making policy decisions based on best practice. So that's learning from other cities, that's understanding what is happening right here in Tulsa. It is learning from the experts. Many of those that just stood in this room are the experts. They understand the complexity, they understand what is needed to hit functional zero, and it is making decisions based on that. We know that each person must be treated as an individual. Each person has to be on an individual pathway. Each person is dealing with a situation that is different from one another, and they have to be treated as such in order for success, for them to be moved on. Resources are provided, and they stay housed and on a pathway to success. So we are driving policy based off of best practices that work and will work here.
Yeah, so I would just add to that, I think, like success, what success looks like for a community is if you've been evicted, or you've had a medical crisis, or you're fleeing domestic violence, or you're struggling with mental illness or substance abuse. The outcome should be the same. We want to see people exit homelessness and remain stably housed and get whatever support they need. So best practice is being able to provide that whole variety of resources, depending on what that person's individual needs. So that is, again, someone who's fleeing domestic violence, do we have a safe, supportive space where they can get out of that situation and be safe for the long term? If this is someone who's struggling with substance abuse, mental health issues, can we help them through treatment and not just improve their health and well-being, but maintain it for the long term? And if this is someone who's fallen on hard times and was evicted, can we help somebody not just get back into housing, but make sure that they have the income, the stability, and support so that this situation doesn't happen again? How do we make sure that happens? Data. So, as I mentioned, we have years of data of showing how people who have fallen into homelessness, what services they've received, whether or not it was effective, did they experience homelessness again, and using that data to inform what works best, what's proven to be effective. Because regardless of what the exit is for a person, we want to do what's best for them. Our main goal is we do not want to see you back in our shelter. We do not want to see you back in the street, and we know how harmful that is for the community. So I think it's all informing our data, which can be a freaking question. Is this real? We have dozens of agencies that are collecting this information. It's on Housing Solutions website, all publicly available dashboards, so the community can see what's effective. Is this working? Are we trending in the right direction? And then can we work with philanthropy, individuals and donors, and government partners to make investments that are really working to achieve some of our broader goals? And one of these right now is most critical is unsheltered homelessness. When it comes to safe move and what we're trying to accomplish with unsheltered homelessness, we have seen this effective in other communities. So in Houston, they closed over 130 encampments. They had more than 500 people who were living in those encampments that exited housing, and 95% of people voluntarily left those encampments and went into housing when approached with this type of supportive enforcement plus supportive resolutions model. Similar to what's being done in Oklahoma City, Dallas. Dallas just effectively ended both veterans homelessness and ended street sleeping in their downtown area. So this is a model that is working in our communities. It's going to be unique to Tulsa because Tulsa has unique opportunities and challenges. But we have seen that we can address unsheltered homelessness in a way that helps individuals move on to something better and helps our community be safe and thrive with the world.
Mark, I have one additional question, so I want to stop before we go to the question. Everybody else, I promise it's coming, everybody. I want to go back to this slide. That middle number at the top, 3,100 people are entering homelessness annually. Adults entering homelessness annually. You guys' count has a number around 1,500. Can you? I hear oftentimes we're spending a lot of money on this and it's not working, right? Can you explain the delta between that 3,100 and why don't we, if that many people are entering annually, why don't we have 3,100 people who are homeless? Why do we have 1,500 instead?
Yeah, I would say because that's the resources and the services that exist. So Way Home for Tulsa partners with formal assistance and resources have already helped more than 785 people this year alone, 2025, exit homelessness, get stability, and we know that 95% of those folks will not return to homelessness. And the goal is 100, to be frank. We have room to do better. In addition, we have a lot of people who fall into homelessness in Tulsa that do everything they can to figure it out. They're doing the hard work. They're trying to maintain keeping kids in school, asking for help with their friends and family, staying work, staying employed. It's just not quite enough. So our resources are keeping more than 900 people in shelter, giving them a safe place to sleep at night. We have 15,000 people in a given year who are accessing some type of services, whether it be homeless prevention or housing assistance or case management. We have outreach teams that interact with hundreds of people, and many of those folks are helping to exit homelessness. So without our existing services, without the generosity of philanthropy and individuals in our community, without some of the limited federal funding that we'd be able to have, the number would be much worse. Tulsa saw an increase in homelessness of about 4% this year. Many other communities saw a much more significant increase. Without the resources that we currently have, the situation would be far more severe. And organizations are constantly finding ways to get better at this, but at the end of the day, there is some resource issues. We can't meet all of the needs of the problem.
Right. So we're going to carry, Father Hill's going to run a mic, I think. So people want to, oh, no, I lied.
got two.
Shane Stone, the director of Government Affairs, going to run the microphone. One thing that Mark just said, he talked about the 4% growth in homelessness this year. Just as for comparison's sake, the year before that number was around 23% of the growth. And so, again, we got a long way to go, but there are signs of progress. Now, the goal has to be now to drive that number down, drive it measurably down. So with that, I'm going to do my very best, my very, very best. It's already handed there. Counselor, I'm gonna start. I'll come back to you, I promise. I'm going to start up here because they started even before we went. So I'll start right here in the front. I'm not. You didn't win any money. I mean, it's just you asked the question.
I don't like home when you're getting home. I don't like home.
Yeah, is that all?
People want to try to kidnap my neighbor's kid.
Home team.
One.
There you go. There you go.
I don't like homeless people, don't try to sit out and you just go. I have no respect for homeless people. And to save Tulsa money, round them up, send them to California.
Yeah. Well,
It would save us a lot of money.
Yeah,
No, really,
I
they tried.
I understand.
So what happened was,
I understand. So I'll say this. Thank you for that. And I'll say this. There is no doubt that amongst our unhoused homeless population, it's a lot of numbers, and that's true with the house population as well. And I don't think that I haven't seen, I guess, where a strategy of sending people to another place at mass has been particularly helpful in doing that. But I understand this is a challenge that hits us all aspects of life, and I think that's the reason why we got to get really serious about the solution.
kid is only 6 years old, and she was outside doing her little
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
And the homeless guy came up to her and was like, "You're coming with me, and if not, the dog's gonna bite you."
Yeah.
Yeah, like, serious.
I understand, and I know
There was
those
a lot
types of
of
stories
drama after
exist.
that.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have a lot of questions, okay? Who pays for the housing and the utilities for these schools? The taxpayers.
Yeah, I
You
should.
know, the taxpayers pay for them to be able to get food because they don't pay them taxes.
They don't file tax returns.
No. But they get
No
$300.
tax returns.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah,
the question?
yeah,
My question is, why aren't they having to pay taxes?
yeah.
They're getting brand new homes, so why aren't they getting?
Yeah, so I'd be happy to maybe address some of that real quick, and if you guys have anything you want to add, we'll be happy to hear it. To the question of, why are people getting new homes and this type of thing, I'll give you just a quick story if I can. And this is a personal experience. I know we all have them, and we have them in various ways. Before I got elected, definitely before I took office, I spent some time with the Housing Solutions team going across the city. I met a young lady who had been a teacher. I believe her story was kind of falling into a bad relationship, kind of went downhill, lost her teaching contract, ended up on the streets. I'll never forget some of the things she told me, which I won't tell the entire story. But she at the time was living at Tradewinds due to a grant from the day center. So far from a mansion or anything like that, but stabilizing her in that place, it's like we've been a former teacher. She had been homeless for, I think the number was close to 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. You guys check me, know what I'm talking about. She just recently got housed. Part of this work is not simply just giving a person a place to stay. Part of this is giving people the opportunity on the track to self-sufficiency. And so when we talk about this is also around providing the services necessary. If you see this up here, this 74% number, most of the folks we're talking about actually don't require help. This number right here, most of the cases be resolved with early support and intervention. The story of the person I'm telling about, the reason why I mentioned this, is because she did tell me, she told me, I'll be honest with you, now I'm a drug user. And she said, do you want to know why I'm a drug user? I wasn't going to ask. She said, because when I first got on the streets, I took drugs to stay awake so I didn't get raped. And now she's hooked on drugs. Now, I'm not saying that's every story, but I'm saying within those stories, some of those issues. And so if we'd have been able, instead of 3 years, to offer some early support, we probably resolve that a lot quicker. There are some things, and I got to tell you, there are some things that face our community, whether it be crime, whether it be challenges in education, whether it be this particular issue, are things I think we would all rather not have to invest in. But this is our community. We have to figure out how we get it done so that we can drive down the cost and the challenges that we face every day on the streets. I don't know if anybody has anything.
Okay, but we pay for police protection, and we're not
The
receiving.
jails are not big enough to deal with the challenge we have out on the streets. It's not appropriate for everybody. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, we can talk about it a little bit afterwards. So I'm not, I'll make sure we get to enough people. I'm happy to, we can discuss more. Absolutely. I'm going to ask for slight brevity. I'll be quicker and then we'll be quicker in answers too. Yes, ma'am.
What concerns me
is that
Yeah.
we need to be more considerate of each other. Every person in here is important. And every person in here, deserves to be treated as a human. Now, if we have to, that's something we need to work on. Now, my husband and I, we tell the truth.
Okay, please.
We have a story to tell. For over 30 years, we've been working with the North Tulsa community about a lot of different issues. It's kind of special community because of the Greenwood destruction and things that have happened where people have not been acknowledging each other and being careful how to treat each other. That area, we've had situations, and I'm sharing this with people. I'm going to be
Yes, ma'am. With this
But we
question.
almost had to rebuild.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
almost had to rebuild that area. I'm not from here. I'm from Oklahoma City. My husband grew up here. And when we first came into that community, the sewer and the water systems had completely failed. We had to have new sewer and water systems built. Okay? People have to be, we have to be more concerned about each other. Because we all matter. We need to see right. None of us are perfect. None of us. Right now, I'm going to share this. We've dealt with a whole lot of issues in the North Tulsa community. We are 2 of the 5 founding members of a neighborhood association over there. This is what I'm going to share right now. There were 2,300 people who were about to get put out of their homes in that area recently. And we had to expose some things so these people could stay in their homes and what they needed to have done was done so they could stay in their homes.
Miss Huntington, I'm sorry. We got it. We got
You don't want me
it.
to say something.
No, I don't have a problem. Listen.
Give me a
There,
minute.
I've already had, there's so many people who are here, and this is question and answer time, and I'm sorry, we're gonna respect everybody's time here. We're gonna respect everybody's time, and I will, I'm sorry, we gotta respect everybody's time. I'm happy for you to say, there are nothing but media cameras all around here. This is not the appropriate setting to do that, but you can talk to anybody you want to after folks get the opportunity to to ask that question.
This is what I'm going to say quickly. Our home, which my husband owns, his dad was a veteran, has been boarded up by the city government wrongfully. This is a retaliation action. We're not homeless. We will never be homeless. I own a home in Oklahoma City. My childhood home that was built in 1974. But this is what I want to say. Our house has been boarded up. All the utilities have been turned off, and our mail has been stopped from coming to our house as an act of retaliation for the work that we're doing in that community, trying to present a homeless situation for me and my family. But we will never be homeless, and we're going to continue to work with people because every person matters. Every person.
Thank you. Look, I'm gonna sort of help out with a couple of important ground rules. It's important that we respect everybody and get as many questions answered as possible. I'm gonna ask that if you are gonna stand in and ask a question, please stick where you are as we ask them, and if you can, try to ask questions, and we'll move on that way. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you so much for this information tonight. I think for me, when I see homeless people on the street, all of this information has not been registered for me. I see the mental issue,
Sure.
and we don't hear this backstory, which is really enlightening. Thank you so much. I think that when we tell this story, we talk about people who have volition, who want to work with the city. To me, that concern is, and I picked up in your verbiage today, is when you choose the option to not sleep on the street. The mental illness breaks my heart. How do we ever get there without changing laws, which is such a tricky thing. You don't ever want to take someone's freedom away, but how do you help?
I think that's a great question. So one of the items that was mentioned in here was a complex case team. Zach Stoikov with Healthy Minds, who's been working on this for years, and we have some of our other behavioral health service providers in the room. So there are some people in our community who, because of their mental health condition, cognitive issues, right, are just in a very, very bad state. So we can offer them resources and they may not be able to understand or accept them. So this is talking about that complex cases of people who have very, very severe high needs that our community and our resources, we try to get, it's just not working. And so what this is calling for is for those folks, we need to identify them, and oftentimes we already know who they are because first responders are responding frequently. They're cycling in and out of our hospitals or our crisis care centers. And what we're calling for is a level of intervention and partnership that just hasn't always been there presently and is built upon. So I know there was an earlier community conversation, really good discussion about some of the investments that have been made in mental health, the work that has been done to reduce calls to law enforcement, and how that's allowing law enforcement to address safety and criminal activity where mental health is being addressed by mental health service providers, that there needs to be even more, and especially when we talk about individuals who are unsheltered and how their needs can be so significant individually for their health, but also even someone who is constantly in and out of crisis, how that creates challenges for the community around them. So that is a component here. That is a very deep level and complex work for people with complex needs. It's going to require a very concerted effort going name by name of how we can help those individuals. And then, when we look at policies and laws that allow us to do that, you're right, it is very complicated. But I think Tulsa has a unique opportunity in that we have incredible service providers, and our ability to provide mental health services have been growing despite some disruptions recently, we'll say. We've seen some results, and this is calling for another level, and I think by the people in this room, you see that there's a commitment from law enforcement, first responders, mental health service providers to do this together. But what we are acknowledging is that homeless service organizations, non-profit organizations, faith-based organizations cannot solve the situation of some of these individuals alone. There needs to be partnership.
I'm going to make sure we get back here. Yes, I don't know who it is. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
My name is Grace Hall, and I just wanted to, I have 2 points that I'd like to ask, and read between the lines of a couple of these stats. If 3,100 adults are entering homelessness, but you have about 5 to 7% recidivism rate ending up back on the street, then that means that over the next 4 years we'll have over 10,000 unique individuals who will end up in this situation. And that points to a more systemic issue that some people are just unable to cope with. And I think that's also pointed out by another stat that you had up here, where there's an average 41% increase in rent since 2019. And so my two questions for you are, what are you doing about the rent, which is too damn high? And in creating these public-private partnerships, how are you ensuring that there's longevity to them? Right now, where there's a very visible element on the streets and where it's like the topic of national conversation, it's easy to ask for not to besmirch the namesake of this building, it's easy to ask the billionaires for money at that point in time to fund these sort of programs. So when it has less attention, how can you ensure that public-private partnerships are sustainable?
Right, so Gene, you want to address?
I'll start with that. Yeah, I'll start with the rent part. And I think part of the answer is lack of housing at all levels, right? If there's lack of housing and more people need it, there's going to be a supply issue, right? So supply demand. The more demand there is, and less supply there is, prices go up, right? Basic economics. And so I think that if we can build more housing, that'll open up options at all levels. So if we can build more market rate housing, people who are in this level of housing might move up to that level of housing, which will open up housing for people below. And obviously the people who don't have any housing can get on the ladder. So I think the issue of the Improve Our Tulsa housing dollars is if we can spend money to incentivize developers to build more housing, if we can streamline the approval process, the permitting process, more people will build houses, and the IoT $3 would be incentivizing housing at lower affordability levels. Most of those would be a loan or a grant or an investment, which would carry up to a 15-year commitment. So if we're investing in housing to keep it affordable, we're going to sign contracts or deed restrictions or covenants that require that affordability for 15 years in order to ensure compliance. So that's kind of the rent side, is more housing essentially will help with lower rent.
And can we, on the partnership side, I don't know what we might do. We talked a little about HPN, and I think some of the philanthropic partnerships overall, so maybe just talk about how we make those more sustainable.
Thanks, I can try to address some of those. So some of the partners that were mentioned on the slides, Housing Partnership Network, Mercy Housing, are professional affordable housing developers, nonprofits that have been building and maintaining housing in other places that have made commitments to come to Tulsa, in large part due to philanthropic efforts. Bring them here, they are also making large commitments. They build housing, they maintain housing, and they provide the necessary services, as Mark was indicating, to the people who live in those housing units. So again, they are making multi-million-dollar investments. They are here for the long haul. They are hiring people in Tulsa. They're setting up entities here in Tulsa, and they are making long-term commitments. In addition, I think, and Mark probably address this further, but the public-private partnership that we're talking about is not just a one-time commitment. The commitment will be long-term. The partners that we're working with, business community, the philanthropic community, understand the commitments, and they're not just going to provide one-time grants. They will provide ongoing long-term commitments.
Emily, I don't know if you want to say anything just really quick about the Eviction Mitigation Council.
Just real quick, a first question. I just want to clarify, did you say that was potentially like a 15-year, is that your accountability marker for those?
At least, yeah. So some of that money is to leverage a low-income tax credit, which is the federal affordable housing incentive. That requires at least a 50-year commitment, sometimes up to 30 years. So yes, the loans, grants, or investments we have will have multi-year commitments. That is just one example.
Does it go up as the year goes by and inflation goes up, or does it stay steady?
Yeah, it's tied to federal cost of living increases and numbers published by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on an annual basis. That rents can go up very slightly so that they're still meant to maintain affordability, but not $1,000 an house for the next 15 years.
Thank you.
Emily, just Eviction Mitigation Council really quick, and then I have to come back there somewhere.
Sure, the Mayor's Eviction Mitigation Coalition is comprised of legal experts, renters, landlords, property managers, city government, nonprofits, service providers, business leaders, and this coalition is in place to build upon the work that has been done and is being done across the city on looking at evictions, the root causes, and what the focus is at the municipal level, what can be done at the municipal level, and looking at both from the renter side and the landlord side.
So my first question that I have is there a list that we can get our hands on so we can get our name out there and network with some of the other people? And I basically focus on people coming back from prison, young people at risk with their parents, they can't deal with them anymore, and senior citizens that now don't have the income that they used to have, and just really helping them get services.
Yeah, absolutely. So for individuals or organizations that are already doing the work, you're more than welcome going on Housing Solutions website at Way Home for Tulsa. So that's that collaboration of more than 60 different organizations, faith-based groups, philanthropy that are working together, and we're always looking for more partners in the work. And then certainly for an individual who's looking to connect individuals seeking resources, you have some of the resources that come out for Way Home for Tulsa. I do have to give a shout out to the United Way, while I'm in the room here. The resources through 211 is really comprehensive, but certainly if there's a more specific way to get connected, I'd be happy to come find you afterwards and answer any questions or figure out how I can help.
Okay, I just, City Councilor District 3, and I brought with me this evening, a person experiencing unsheltered living conditions and living on the street. She's very brave to come, and I want to introduce her. Her name is Bobby. And we are a room full of people with sheltering, hot water, food, refrigerators, and a means to cook our food. So I would like to introduce Bobby and just kind of let her have her voice in this room full of people that actually aren't experiencing the hardships that she is. I'm with you.
Well, it's hard to be homeless where we are right now. There's a lot of stuff's going on. I pray to God every day. I am working on my housing through one of the people, through Be Heard and all that. They're wonderful people, but we got all these other people who are threatened to, like the other people that's homeless, like to hurt other people. I step in the middle to it to help them. You know, it's hard out there. You know, if people would understand where we are coming from, it'd be a better place. It's hard out there for us. We don't know which way we're going to turn, if we're going to live one day and be gone the next.
I think the city, you can work with.
Wait a second. Hey, there's been a number of times to this point that we've had issues up front, and I would just ask that we all be respectful of each other in this space. It's a tough issue, it's an important issue for the city, and the only pathway forward is that we figure it out together, and we're not going to figure it out together by arguing each other. So,
you know, half of us can't work. Some of us is disabled. We don't know which way to turn, but luckily, like I said, we got Creo, we got Beaver. They all are helping me right now. I appreciate them. I just need 2 more documents, and I'm going to get my housing soon.
Let's be nice and respectful. Again, as the mayor said, it is not easy being on the street. She's very brave to be here. And to have people throw out solutions that, oh, you can do this, you can do that. Let's not do that. Not here, not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also a slow learner. So, you know, it's hard for me being a slow learner and trying to talk. You know, it's hard on me. Much like I've been through in my life, through thick and thin. You know, it's very hard. People don't know what's going on out there nowadays, out there on the streets. We live there every day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So knowing that there are probably hundreds of different factors, probably mostly if not all systemic factors, that contribute to someone being unhoused, where do you see the gaps in your solutions that you presented here tonight? What contributes to those gaps, and how do you hope to bridge those gaps for the future?
Yeah, so I can add to that. So currently we're looking at how can we scale a level of services that isn't sufficient to meet the needs. So we're going to need people, just to be frank, to provide the level of support that needed, whether that's outreach, caseworkers who can help an individual, get kids enrolled in school, seek employment or benefits or find housing. Certainly we're going to need housing. We're going to need landlords who are willing to, take a second chance on someone who may not have good credit or may have been evicted before, or maybe doesn't have income right now but is working towards it. And I think we'll need a broader level of support. This is a huge effort. We're trying to be one of the first communities in America that has ended unsheltered homelessness. This is not for a lack of ambition, but I think it's not a lack of ability in this community, because Tulsa has stepped up in the past. Just this past winter, on maybe 2 or 3 days' notice, this community activated and offered an additional 600 shelter beds to individuals, just like that, when the temperature got down to negative 15 degrees. And it wasn't just employees, it was volunteers, it was retirees, people showing up with clothing or food to meet that need. If we can do that on 2 days' notice, I think we can accomplish some bigger challenges as well.
Hey, Mark, can you just, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then to do this work at scale, it's been said in the numbers that the funding, the investment has to be there.
Mark, can you just share just really quick, and we'll come to Brian, and then I see your hand over there too, and I saw you, there's 3 over here in this area. Can you just share a little bit about when outreach workers engage folks in the encampment, what's that interaction like to be able to identify some of these gaps? Like, how do we know what somebody needs as we encounter them?
Yeah, so I think there's an intentional soft way to do this, right? And you can just go in and tell somebody, like, what do you need? What can we do for you right now? And if you're a stranger who just walked into the place where I sleep at night, where maybe people have stolen from me, or I've had bad experiences, or I've been assaulted, like, I don't know you. I'm not going to tell you everything about me, and you tell me you're going to help me. Like, that's how my walk disappears if I still have it. So the first part is building a relationship, getting to know someone, showing some trust. The second part is how can we make sure that your basic needs are met? Because it's really hard to focus on anything when you haven't had a good night's sleep. You're thirsty, you're food. So how can we meet the basic needs in the moment so that we can talk about some of the more complex problems? And from there, we work through an assessment that looks at, how long have you been experiencing homelessness? What kind of issues are you struggling with? When was the last time you were in housing? What are your goals? Because what we want to do is empower people to be independent and sustainable on their own long term, and then we start working towards those. But I mean, honestly, the number one thing that we usually help a person is just basic identification. Having some type of form of ID that you can prove who you are, so that not only can you, go seek assistance, but if you're going to seek employment, that's the number one thing, is can you have an ID if you're going to apply for housing. So the amount of people that we're helping not just get an ID, but maybe get a record of a birth certificate, social security cards, those are big needs. And then from there, outreach workers provide that connection for an individual to housing. So what we're trying to disrupt is, if you're unsheltered, you need to go to this location to get an ID, you need to go to this location to get a shower, you need to go to this location to do your housing application, then go look at these 5 different apartments. We're asking people who are in crisis to navigate a complex system, and so having outreach workers that go to them and help them resolve it quicker leads to a better outcome. And then it also builds to the trust, where we are asking people to take a leap with us, saying that we're going to help you solve your problems. There's a lot of work that needs to come here, and like proving that time and time again.
My name is Brian Turner. I work with a group of people who are committed to eradicating poverty in Tulsa. We spent over a year looking at this project. You mentioned best practices. Where does the over decades of research, as well as 25 scientifically evaluated projects related to direct cash assistance, helping people, and we know it works, where is that on your list of best practices?
So I think we're looking at it on a needs base through Safe Move Tulsa. The $6 million that's been committed from in joint partnership with the City Council and the Mayor, that is allocated to each individual on a needs basis, through an individualized needs plan, right? So someone who is in the shelter, someone who is on the street, coming out of homelessness, they're working with outreach team, they're working with service providers to identify what their needs are to get them on a pathway out of homelessness into permanent housing. And that is where those dollars are going, is to meet those needs.
And I'll say on the direct cash assistance deal, but I'm sure there's others, but there's a number of mayors across the country who are in a coalition. And what I have found in a lot of cases, 2 things. One, most of those are pilot programs where they're seeing how well they're doing. I think COVID did prove in some ways that cash assistance does certainly help folks get by. And one of the challenges that are associated with it, some of those communities are subject to lawsuits now because of how some of those programs are structured. Really what we have a lot of interest in is figuring out what are the programs that exist already. Maybe TANF is a great example of this, where some reform in that system might open up dollars that are going to already flow to those individuals and those families to flow to them a little more freely, where they can get the financial assistance without it having to be directed to certain places. And so we actually hope to partner with the state to figure out, is there a way in which we can begin to break those bonds of poverty with existing programs that are flowing through, where people are getting qualified, where people are working, people are having a hard time getting by, and there's dollars associated with that. So it is something that we venture to begin to work through. I don't know if we have a great mechanism locally to do a program like that at scale, but it is an evaluation. I've looked at a lot of the models, how cities are paying for it, who to partner with to get it done. And I think that's part of the deal. Where is the most appropriate pot of money where we can do some innovation with? And then to the extent that it works, how do you then build a sustainable program, find something that we know works with a different funding mechanism? So it certainly is an effective strategy. What I really want to understand better is how can we use the resources that might already be in the state to do that. One of the constraints that we have as a city is our operations is all sales tax. And so we have to be very ambitious in like how we generate our resources to pay for things versus maybe finding some other resources to do some of the innovation.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm a renter, and one of my biggest concerns is every time my lease is renewed, I'm not sure how much more my rent will be. Are there any mechanisms in place for renters to stabilize rent increases?
Not that I know of, but we're working on it. So as Emily indicated with the Mayor's Eviction Mitigation Coalition, we are trying to work with all people at like all stages, landlords, property owners associations, court systems, private service providers, tenants, and try to figure out what the current processes are and how we can improve them. One of the things we're talking a lot about in the city is trying to incentivize positive behavior and tax or disincentivize negative behavior. So if we can find the landlords who are doing the right thing, working with tenants if they have an issue, not jacking up rents, not retaliating against tenants, things like that. We can find ways to incentivize them to encourage that positive behavior. We know they're going to be bad actor landlords, and that's okay. Our goal is that they go somewhere other than Tulsa. We can't stop that behavior, but we can disencourage it and make it really hard for them to behave negatively in our town.
Yeah, one of the challenges that we have, just to overlay the challenge that we have when it comes to rent control and some of those things, is we can make a policy, that policy can quickly be undone by the state legislature. And so the reason why we're working through this Eviction Mitigation Council is so we can come up with solutions that are done with the input of landlords as well, so we can be able to identify what does success look like for us with being able to mitigate any jumps in rent that leave people out on the streets or make it very difficult for people to get by. Like you saw the stat, which is no surprise to anybody, about the cost per challenge that people have. We have to come up with really balanced ways locally because we're not the only policymakers. Any state, and I think this has been something that I know has been a concern of the city in the past, is this is not the first time that I think electeds have really wanted to look deeply at affordability, at getting off out of the top 10 or 15 evictions. The challenge has always been the likelihood, frankly, of preemption from the state if you do something which completely takes out of our hands the ability to do the things that we're trying to do right now. So that's the other kind of political policy challenge, is that anything that could be maybe controversial in a way that could lend itself to the state coming in, that's really challenging. A great example of this is right now in the state of Oklahoma. I don't even think you can mandate that you have to have paper grocery sacks, right? Yeah, that's due to preemption. All the way to you can't make any laws more strict than the state laws on guns, for example. And And so one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that the Tulsa solution is balanced enough that it doesn't invite any sort of grant from the state that completely takes out of our hands the ability to kind of figure out how we want it done here. So that's the reason why when Gene asked to answer the question, nothing now, and that's the reason why we're working through this eviction.
And before we jump to the next question, to add to that, not to sound like a broken record, but the more housing we can incentivize to rebuild, the more options tenants will have. So if you have options and can negotiate with your landlord, I'm going to stay here, if my rent doesn't go up by X, the better bargaining power you'll have. Whereas now, if the landlord can jack the rent or there are 10 other people waiting for that unit, they have less incentive to negotiate to be reasonable.
Thank you, Mayor. Emily, Mark, Gene, I want to just first say thank you for your time. Appreciate you being here, answering questions, and listening to the public. For those who don't know, could you give us a little more information about the PID count and a little bit more information about how those numbers are gathered? I think that's important. I've done a little policy work before, and if you could kind of talk about eviction rates and how easy it is to keep evicted in Tulsa, Oklahoma. For also another part to that is, what would be the first step that a person who lost their job or became physically unable to work where they couldn't, or seniors who are the highest population now becoming unhoused? What's the first step to seek assistance so that you don't end up homeless? Or when you do end up homeless, where to go?
Yeah, so that was a lot of great questions. So the PID count is also called the point in time count. So it's a federal requirement that every community that receives federal dollars for homelessness has to do this count. It happens in the last 2 weeks of January. There's a bit of a standardized way to do it. So volunteers, shelter providers, outreach providers in Tulsa and every community across the state and most of the nation go out and conduct a survey of any individual experiencing homelessness on that given night. So last year was January 24th here in Tulsa. So every individual who stayed in a shelter that night, we conducted a survey, and then we canvassed the entire county. And we went all the way north to Owasso, all the way down to Glenpool. We covered the whole county to capture every individual and whatever information we can on that day. So what that doesn't capture is, right, how many people are homeless tomorrow and who could get housed today. So it's really, really hard to have like a standing snapshot every single day of how many people are homeless. By doing that count every year in the same way, with better information, we can compare and look at trends. So we had 1,449 individuals who were experiencing homelessness in Tulsa County on the night of January 24th. What we saw is, like you mentioned, we saw continuing increase in rising seniors experiencing homelessness, which certainly both goes to healthcare, rising housing costs, the need for additional support. We continue to see that 17% of people were working. That was down a little bit from last year, but consistently we have about a fifth of people that when we do that survey are currently employed, which shows, I think, some of the challenges for people exiting homelessness. To the broader data, so we have a homeless management information system that Housing Solutions is the lead board of Tulsa that service providers all across the community use. So we do basic assessments, we get people's information. It's also a record, so if someone has an ID, we say the digital copy for that later. It's also how we make connections to services that people need. So again, can we not make it so that a person has to walk 3 miles to get to a healthcare provider? Can we make that connection and figure out how they get those resources? And it's also how we look over time. So we have records for information for people who've experienced homelessness in Tulsa 15 years ago. So if that person experiences homelessness again, we can kind of do that data and analytics to really look at what's working, what is some of the solution. I think some of the broader challenges that you're talking about what can we do to prevent homelessness, I mean, it's really challenging. If a person experiences crisis in our community, there are not enough resources. We have more than 13,000 evictions that were filed in Tulsa County. Not all of those evictions go through. There are some bad actor landlords in our community who file evictions repeatedly just to collect fines and fees because there's a lack of options. And so people know that they can keep some of their tenants trapped. If an individual loses their employment, and we already saw 46% of our community are cost burdened, many people are living paycheck to paycheck. folks are going to struggle. What we oftentimes see in Tulsa, though, is that community helps. People ask friends, they ask family, they try to figure situations out on their own. Usually when an individual falls into homelessness, it's because they just don't have any other option. Everything else is kind of bunk bill, or there's not like additional assistance there. Because as somebody who's worked in shelter, as somebody who has done street outreach, I can tell you, there are much better opportunities. I would rather sleep on my mom's couch for a week, right, than to sleep on the streets for a single night. It is a very unsafe, unhealthy environment, but many people in our community are struggling. The challenge I think we have as a community is we can't solve all of these problems all at once. The amount of resources, the needs, the challenge are too big. So can we make strategic investments? Unsheltered homelessness is deeply unsafe and unhealthy for the people who experience it. It's a key challenge for our community as a whole. That's a significant investment where we can solve that problem. How many other resources do we free up? Does that allow law enforcement to be a little bit more focused? Do our first responders get to respond more to urgent health crisis as opposed to trying to help somebody who's unhoused? Does that allow our public works investment to ensure that our community is still thriving and beautiful? So, and it's the same thing with, I think, investing in affordable housing. That's an investment back into our community, the people we're building in our community, jobs, affordability. And so where can we make targeted investments that hopefully has a broader impact?
All right,
Oh, and if you want more data, housingsolutionsTulsa.org. I promise you we have a wealth of data on our dashboards. The pin count is posted. You can see this year and previous years, as well as a lot of demographic and a lot of background information.
Okay, so I'm going to have to go to the last, just to respect people's time. I got right here, and then I got back there. So I got the last two here. Now, when we leave, we'll still do it. But let me say this. When we're done with these last two, three panels will still be up here. I'll stick around. There's another number of other people in the room. So we can continue the conversation. Want to make sure we get everybody out.
Well, looking at some, looking at some percentages just now, why are we a magnet for out of state and out of Tulsa homelessness people? It looks like maybe 25% of the people, 3,100, are coming from somewhere else.
I'll say this. I mean, I think that is something that is true for most urban areas. I mean, I no disrespect to other amazing cities across the state of Oklahoma, the country, but I think if you were trying to maybe find a better place to be, there's certainly a lot of reasons why people would come here over, going to maybe like a Burns Flat, Oklahoma, or something like that. But every mayor I talk to across the country, particularly those of us in decent-sized urban communities, have that same challenge with inflow.
Well, the numbers put out by I think I don't know where they're at, but show that other states around us are much lower.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was inaccurate in retrieving the data. It was showing that there's 3% coming from Texas, 2% from California. So that's what the data was. Sorry, I didn't realize that's what you thought.
Which is not too far out of school budget.
No, that's not too far.
Yes, sir. And I mean, and honestly, we have challenges with people from within the state coming in from other parts of the state as well. Right? Yes, ma'am.
We talk about affordable housing, and in my mind, that's $500 a month or so. And yet I see the builders now coming into affordable neighborhoods, tearing out and putting those mini mansions that are $600,000. How can we prevent that so that those neighborhoods can stay lower?
Yeah, good question.
I don't think
it's perfect. I'll just speak loudly. I don't know that we can do that. I don't know that we can prevent people from buying property and building what they want on there. But what we can do, again, not sounding broken record, is we can create more incentives for people to build housing that is more affordable at deeper affordability levels. And the more options there are, the more that kind of snowballs into that. So the more housing we build, the more options there are, the more we can incentivize and place covenants or deed restrictions against and require to keep at affordability levels for the next 15, 30 years, the more that'll create options for people to stay, keep housing that is affordable for them.
Yeah, and I'll add, like, one of the big priorities we had this last legislative session was actually this little thing, it's House Bill 2147. And so it was in part, one of the reasons why we care about getting rid of blighted properties is so that we can, be able to develop them into affordable units. And so these two top things right here have been, the first one, the pilot program, and the idea was we have these blighted properties, and we have folks who are developing or trying to develop affordable price properties and communities, that we could basically cut down the cost of the development, and we could fast track people through so that they can pass that savings on to the person who would rent or buy it moving forward. So it's trying to find innovative ways that we have to work within these challenges around affordability, due to state law and other things. And so this is one of those ways in which we're doing it. Gene mentioned the need to continue to increase our stock. I was with the Apartment Association, which for the first time, I think, ever really has leaned in as a partner in this work, which is a powerful partner. They would acknowledge that they also have some bad actors within the apartment community, so trying to figure out how we can all come together and be responsible. And I was telling them, I know, like, as a person who runs a decently sized organization right now, and everybody will tell you turnover is incredibly expensive. And so I was like, you know, evictions also have to be expensive, one would think. And it is. And I was like, well, how come that doesn't maybe impact the bottom line for a lot of these mass evictors oftentimes? And it was because there are plenty of people who need housing and not enough of it. And so to Gene's point, that is part of that affordability thing, is making sure there are more options for people. The market is not great for renters right now, and stock is a part of that. I will say our panelists are going to be here. I'm speaking for them, so I know they don't have anything to do. They may have plenty of things to do, but I don't know. They may run after some of these questions. They'll stick around for a little bit. And the one thing I'll kind of just say to close, and I said before, I know this is a tough issue. I know there's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of frustration. And I can tell you, I have a lot of opinions about it too. I have a lot of frustrations about it too. I'm not sure I fully, appreciate that the investment needed is the number that it is, but it just is what it is. And we have to make a decision, is this an issue that we want to solve or not? And how do we get on about doing that? I will tell you, our desire in the city is not just to spend money, but to spend money against outcomes. So we build a framework by where we invest when outcomes are good, to make sure it's a good return for the taxpayer. But I do think that this is a community that's done a lot of really amazing things. We've built great parks. We've built a great city. We certainly have our challenges, but every single time we've made the decision to meet those challenges, we've typically done pretty well. There's been a lot of thought going into what do you do about housing? What do you do about homelessness? And I can tell you that what's reflected in the plans that we are pursuing is not the opinions of the mayor, it is the experience and expertise of professionals. And I think the investment that's going to be necessary to get there, the quicker that we make a decision to invest at a level that makes sense, the quicker we come with a framework by where we are investing in outcomes, the quicker that we get on about the business, the cheaper that it's going to be. The negative impacts that we might feel from homelessness, whether it be in education, because it's true, family homelessness went up 34% a couple of years ago. The impact that we feel from a public safety standpoint, all those things will be mitigated, but we have got to understand that the cities that decide to invest are going to be the cities that get on the other side of it. And that's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to ask. It's not an easy issue. There are a lot of opinions. Like I said, I got a lot of them too. There's a lot of frustration. I have a lot of that frustration too. This issue and so many other issues is just going to require us to stretch. It's going to require us to be innovative. And it's going to require us to have the kind of resolve that's going to make sure that folks like Bobby and other folks not only get the supports that they need, but are put on a pathway where they can lead a really good life. There are some people, I know people are saying, there's some people who don't want that. That's probably true. That's probably true. But the data that I've seen, Mark can tell me about other data he's seen a lot more of it. But the data I've seen is that number at top is around 15 to 12% of those people, right? So not acting based on 10 or 15% is not an option. What we have to do is we have to make sure that we do the things that are necessary to make sure Tulsa continues to be competitive, and that Tulsa is not just a compassionate city. Tulsa is a city where folks can continue to build, where people can continue to lead themselves toward a sustainable life, and that's just going to take us to come together to solve tough issues, homelessness being chief among them. Thank you so much for your time and attention tonight.